I hate introductions, don't you? But it seems like they're always necessary. So here goes. I'm Ashley. I'm a wife, mom, pastor, and missionary's kid, which is double trouble if you didn't know. And if you're in this space, we're here to learn about who God is, who we are in Him, and how to do faith in the real, meaning the real messy. Hello and welcome to episode number 1. I am so honored that you're here in this place that I never thought I would be. It's funny because 2 years ago, I was part of a writing group, and one of the first assignments they gave us was to list 5 dreams that we had or would have if there were no chance of failure. And on number 2, I wrote a podcast. I remember whispering that to my sister, but not having the courage to vocalize that anywhere else because I thought that is so far beyond my grasp. There's no way that I could do that. And I was right. There was no way that I by myself could do that. But God has spent the last 2 years preparing me for this day and has been working to change all my no's to yeses. He's obliviated all the excuses I've had, and there have been plenty. He's been so patient with me, and I'm thankful for that. And thankful also for those of you that God used to propel me to this moment. There are so many of you, and I dare not risk saying you or listing you because I would feel awful if I forgot someone on accident. But you know who you are if you're a part of this journey. And I want to thank you. Thank you for your prayers. Thank you for your encouragement. Thank you for your support. And also just that constant reminder that through Christ, we really can do anything. And so here we are. And I am so excited to be here and honestly a little nervous. This is new territory for me. I am not a tech person at all. I am what I call a vintage person. And so this is very intimidating for me. And so I'm going to ask first and foremost that you just be patient and gracious with me as I'm learning and growing. And I think that's the thing that I hope for the most at this point, besides the main goal. And that's just that you will see growth from episode 1 to episode. And I'm honored that you're here to see this. You're going to see some mistakes, but that's okay because that's part of what we're going to be talking about in this space. What does faith in the messy mean? And why is that something that I've chosen to emphasize when there are so many other things that we could talk about? Because for me, I've come to realize that messy is just a part of everyday life. And it's something that all of us can relate to on some level. Now, I'm going to go into my story in further episodes, but I'll touch on it a little bit here to give you the context of why we're talking about this. Because I grew up in a pastor's home. When I was 13, we went overseas to the mission field. I was in church every time the doors were open growing up. It was a normal part of my life. The Bible stories, the verses, the Christian lingo was all very familiar to me. But I did not become saved until I was in my early 20s. Christ opened my eyes to my need for Him and rescued me. And that's a story that I can't wait to share with you later. But what I quickly came to realize was that I didn't know how to use the knowledge that I had in real life. I was married shortly after becoming saved. We had our first son much sooner than we had planned. And just in life and in relationship, I quickly became aware that I did not know what to do with the Bible verses and the stories and how to utilize them when things get messy. Can you relate to that? I think a lot of us can, especially those of us that go to church every Sunday. And I want to be very careful not to bash the church as I'm talking to you, but I also want to venture out into this area where maybe we find the courage to talk about some things that we may not normally talk about. I think and suspect that a lot of us go to church on Sundays or see our friends, and we tell each other that we're fine when we're not. And it can be hard and uncomfortable to know how to talk about the messy. And I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to hide behind a mask. I want to be very authentic with you. And speaking of that word, I have a friend, Bridget, that I've been talking to recently, and I'm trying to figure out how to define the difference between authenticity and transparency. I'm still working through this, so bear with me here, but here are my thoughts as of right now. I think being authentic is being true to who you are with everyone. But being transparent is letting people in and letting them see. And a lot of times we'll hear people talk about the need to be transparent. And I agree with that. There is a need to be transparent. But I think we often confuse that with being authentic. And that is really what I'm striving to become, is more authentic with others. And I often think about relationships in the context of, if you had a dartboard and you have the innermost circle, that's where you are, and those that are closest to you. And the people in the inner circle with you are those with whom you can be the most transparent. They get to see pretty much everything, if not everything, right? And then as you have the outer circles, you have other relationships that are in those circles. But even the person on the outermost circle of your life should know who you are authentically, even though they may not be able to see into the innermost part of you. If you think about being around someone who's very transparent, if there isn't relationship in that context, it can be very uncomfortable for us, right? It's like, whoa, this is a lot of information from someone that I don't really know. I want to be careful of that because I am a more open person. I don't mind sharing, but I want to be aware of A, relationship, and B, my story doesn't just involve me. My story involves others, and I need to be respectful and mindful of their stories and how they might feel and the privacy that they might want to have. But I think I can still do that and be authentic. It's something that I'm learning, and I want to invite you in. I want you to get to know me, and I want to be more transparent with you. That doesn't mean that I'm going to share everything with you. So don't get nervous if you're someone that's like, oh, whoa, TMI. It's okay. We're still going to have discernment, and we're going to try to practice wisdom in this. But I've been listening to several podcasts over the last few months because I'm trying to learn this world, and I know that I can learn from others who are already in it. And I've noticed that they are very authentic, and I admire that. They're sharing their stories, but in that, they're being very careful with transparency. They're not letting me see every tear they cried, every emotion they felt, every hard conversation that they had along the way in their story of growth. But they're sharing the parts that are relevant to all. And I don't just share to get something off my chest. I'm sharing with you because I want you to see the one that is greater than me, and that's God. It's interesting because we have extremes, and I'm an extremist. I love to paint, for example, and I'm not somebody that can paint one wall and be done. No, I have to paint the entire room, and then I am done. And I have to be so careful of that in so many areas of my life, and this is one of them. On one hand, you can have those that are just like way too open. I've got a fly trying to join and crash my episode. And then on the other hand, we have those that are, it's like too private. We probably need to find a balance, how to be real and how to share our mess. Because particularly within the Christian community, we talk about how great God is, how good God is. We talk about how amazing salvation is. We talk about how we need to praise Him for the victory. But when we fail to mention the messy parts of the story that really magnify why God is so great, why salvation to us is so amazing, why that victory was so incredible, we're really missing opportunities to better magnify Christ and to better encourage and admonish one another, which is what we are called to do as believers. And so in this space, I am inviting you to join me in trying to figure out, how do I get to know God? And how do we get to better know one another? And how do we apply faith and share our faith while sharing the messy? I don't know. It might be kind of uncomfortable at times. And I'm still learning this. I'm still growing this in this. And I want to say also, this is so important. So please hear me. I am not your Bible. And what you hear me say needs to be an echo of what God says. And again, I'm still learning. I do not have this all figured out. Yes, I may have been in church since I was a child, but that does not mean that I know it all. But I do know where to find the answers, and we can do that together. And so I'm going to invite you, and this is scary for me, I'm going to invite you to keep me accountable. If you hear me say something that doesn't line up with what God says, I want you to privately contact me and talk to me about that so that I can grow and so that I can learn and so that I can come on here and say, hey, I messed up and we need to talk about this and we need to look at what God says, because I can have a million opinions, but they don't matter in the end. What God says is the only thing that matters. And that's what I'm striving to learn, is what he says and how to best share the good news with those that don't know him yet and with those of us that do. Because even those of us that are walking with Jesus, we have hard days. We have stuff that's happening, things that are hard, and we need good news. We need each other. I'm so thankful that God has given us a community of brothers and sisters who are here to walk with each other, which means we're going to have to get our feet dirty sometimes as we, get closer to our destination, and that's heaven, that's forever. And I'm excited about that. So thank you so much for joining me on episode number 1. I look forward to further episodes and sharing my heart with you. And most of all, just getting to know God with you and getting to learn how to do this thing that he gave us that's called life. So I'd love to hear from you. Drop me a line, leave me a comment. Let me know if there's something that you want to share. Let me know if there's something that you want to hear me talk about in the future, and I'll make a note of it. You guys have a great week, and I will talk to you soon.